Zem from Shrek Gaming, and we're back doing one of these low tier premium ship reviews. And today we are doing the OLEG, which is a tier 3 Russian cruiser. And I actually like these old ships, I think they're kind of cool. More just from the actual look of them and whatnot. And they are actually pretty fun to play. They typically have a fair amount of guns, and they reload really, really fast. So there's a lot of spamming going on, right? Um, they kind of have that that old style look to them. Especially, I always love the bows on these things. They look like they're just kind of cutting through the water and whatnot. This is one of four, the Bogatyr, I believe is how you pronounce it, class cruisers. Um, this one, the Oleg, was launched in 1903. She actually just as she got launched, she is, and by the time she got refitted, she was in the middle of the Russian-Sino war at the time, and she actually did participate in 1905 in the Tsushima uh, battle. That was where the Russian and the Japanese navies had a little spat, and the Russians got spanked hard. Um, the Oleg was able to escape. She was somewhat heavily damaged, and her and two other cruisers were able to escape the Japanese fleet and was able to make port, and eventually was, that was 1905, and she was actually placed back into service again in 1908. She participated in World War One. In various theaters. The Mediterranean, I believe, was one of them. She did well. I mean, this was a protected armored cruiser, so she was a little behind times by the time she was dealing with anything that was built. These were pre-dreadnought cruisers, so compared to her contemporaries, during the World War One, she was a little outdated. Um, at least gun armor and all that kind of stuff, layouts. She was actually involved with the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. Her crew mutinied and took over the ship and pledged their allegiance to the communists. She was unfortunately they used her in a kind of a she assaulted a Red Army naval base, and at the time the British were involved, and she actually ended up being torpedoed in 1919. So she was sunk by a British, I believe, a torpedo boat, and let me see, make sure that she was sunk by a Russian Royal Navy speedboat CMB 40 CMB 4. She was salvaged in 1919. In 1933, the parts of her and the rest of the hulk was raised and scrapped in 1938. So yeah, she ended up being torpedoed. That was her final fate at the end of the war. The in-game one, if you're interested, like I said, tier three, lots of guns. We have 8 single 152 millimeter guns. We have 2 in the forward turrets, which is our um, a double as 2 cannons in each turn. So yeah, which is kind of odd for tier three, especially for premium ship. Most of these ships at the time, they all had single guns. This has got the double on it. 1275 millimeter for a secondary, and with the main armament, the 152 millimeters have a range of 10.8 kilometers, um, and has a pretty decent reload. So you'll see me in this game that I'm playing. These low tier cruisers and stuff, you just spam pretty much HE at everything, even other cruisers, because you're dealing with ships. We feel like I said, obviously, with these layouts here that have little or no armor at all. So HE does a pretty good job. I mean, AP, don't get me wrong, does excellent, but you do see odd bounces more times than not. So you'll see spam HG most of the game. You'll see me switching out to AP once in a while. The only real armored are obviously the turrets. that have any sort of armor at all, and of course the conning tower. Uh, yeah, those are about it for any sort of armor. Otherwise, that it's just we're talking 11 millimeters, 13 millimeters. Yeah, not much for armor. So being for an armored cruiser, yeah, well, not really. Hit points, 24,100. Like I said, our armor's most of it's 120 millimeters. Not something that you're going to depend on. The game I do actually do when I do take a couple hits, you'll do see some ricochet of some shells, but obviously with the AP shells, if they hit you oddly, of course they're going to bounce. Maneuverability wise, 24 knots maximum speed, large turning radius. Yeah, she's not quick. She doesn't turn with a so it's a little bit makes for interesting gameplay. Detectability 10 kilometers, range by air 5.7, and of course the proxy spot is at 2 kilometers. The ship I enjoyed. I do, if I remember right. I think I might have got this in a super container, if I remember right. Yeah, maybe that was. I think that's where I got it. Was I haven't played it very much, but I decided to start training some crews. You obviously notice that I have a fair amount of Russian cruisers, and I'm actually going to start moving up the Russian line for the cruisers, and I'm just kind of building up some crews here to see, make sure I have something available for my cruisers when I start moving it up. And I think the game I made it around 20K for silver. So yeah, it did make pretty decent money. I wasn't at all disappointed in that. And if you'd like the low tier cruiser play, hey, this thing definitely will dish it out pretty quick. It fires quick, fairly accurate guns, and when you do hit, yeah, they do a lot of damage. So I'm gonna bring up the gameplay for this ship, and we'll see a little gameplay of how well it performs. All right, we are back to the battle with the OLEG, and this is a pretty standard battle at this tier. Lots of cruisers, a couple battleships, one destroyer. Unfortunately, our destroyer decides that he isn't going to play. I don't know if he disconnected or what, but he is out of the game, unfortunately. Because I don't know. Personally, if I was the low tier destroyers and these things, I would just have. They'd be just too much fun with those big slow battleships of this tier, and obviously the player skill wise is a little questionable. But since he's not here, yeah, this game doesn't actually turn out too well for us. So I got a Chester with me here, and another cruiser, an Albany. I'll be doing a review on the Albany. That's actually a pretty fun little cruiser too. Tier 2 premium. As I said earlier, OLEG does have a fair amount of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you'll pretty much eight guns per broadside. So yeah, it has a wallop when you do fire. So we got an inbound St. Louis, and you'll see me moving away here just because these two cruisers to the north of me are not attempting to do anything. They're moving with me away from that St. Louis. And if you play cruisers in this game, you obviously know they're not something that holds up well to battleships, and you tend to look for places where you can get some cover. And you'll see me here. They really can't see me. I've pulled in behind an island, and I do have I have a battleship here, this King Albert, that is steaming along nicely, letting me pummel him here with HE. I actually didn't try any AP on these battleships, so I'm not terribly sure about the pen with some of these low tier battleships. My intention here is that I'm trying to set him on fire as much as possible, and you'll see me spam a lot of HE at these guys, and he's absolutely just. I don't know. I think he stopped, or he just simply put it down at such a low speed. I don't know if that was his attempt to, to dodge my shells or what. But he did a good job of it, because apparently I can't shoot with his shit. So I finally get a nice shell into him. Yeah, 4 hits, 1,800 damage, and I do set him on fire finally. That was kind of my intention here, was to get his attention as much as possible. But that's about the time when all of a sudden St. Louis finally comes around the corner of the island up there, and starts, pummeling me with AP shells. I don't know why he chose me and not the other guy, but my luck. I'll end up having to deal with it. So I did get another fire put in on that battleship. He actually ended up putting it out right away, but I did get 14,000 damage off of him. So St. Louis is after me. He's got AP loaded. Typically in a battleship or in one of these cruisers, if you ever dealing with another cruiser, you definitely do not want to go broadside to him as little as possible. And that's what you'll see me do here. I'm going to give him a rear of my ship as much as I possibly can, and then until I notice that he starts not paying attention and he's actually shooting at something else. So pummel a few more shells of AP at him. I would really like to get a couple Citadel hits on him, but I'm also firing just with my rear 3 guns. So since he's not paying attention and he's finally out of my range, I start to come broadside a little bit here because he's not paying attention to me anymore. We are currently down. They do kill the enemy destroyer, and that's about the time the Chester shows up. So now the St. Louis is out of my range, and I'm not terribly worried about him as much as I was before. The Albany with me here is, he is not paying one bit attention to the fact that we're currently getting chased by 2 other cruisers. He's busy off shooting over there. So I got the Chester. He's giving me somewhat of his broadside here. I switched to HE though. Obviously that St. Louis is still within his range of me, but this Chester is starting to pummel me here a little bit. He switches to HE shells. I went back to AP to see how well I was going to do against him. The Chester, yeah, he got terminated. So the Chester gives me his broadside, and I start pummeling AP at him. See if I can get maybe a Citadel or 2 against him. But you notice right there that shell actually didn't do no damage. You can see it as it ricocheted off the ass end of that Chester. And this is typically why a lot of people don't use AP at this tier level. The HEs seem to do a lot more damage. And if you're not doing, even if it's not doing damage, it's setting them on fire, wrecking all kinds of shit on their ship. So yeah, it does have some benefits here. So now I'm out of the St. Louis's range, and you'll start seeing me here turn sideways to this Chester. More along the lines of is that he is giving me his bow, which means he only has 1 forward gun. They do wreck my steering, which is unfortunate, but yeah, he is definitely after me. So St. Louis is far enough out of his range that he's having some tough time actually hitting me. So I am actually firing entirely on this Chester. I am setting fires as fast as I can. With his bow on, like I said, he's only got 1 gun that actually can fire at me. So I don't really have a problem giving him my broadside here. So I can bring all my guns into play. as much damage as I can. St. Louis finally starts pulling in here. Dresden has been pummeling me as well. But hey, it's cruiser play at tier 3. St. Louis actually starts to ignore me. I don't know if he was not interested in this other cruiser, but it gives me a chance to start pummeling him. He's once again pow on to me, which means he doesn't have a whole lot of guns in play, at least at me. So that gives me a chance to turn the broadside here and bring all my guns into play. So now, typically I get a few more shells than that from the St. Louis, and he is actually starting firing nothing but AP at me. So once again, turn away from him. I don't like getting broadsides to, especially these AP monsters with their super fast reload. St. Louis is notorious for being super fast. So I'm just actually just gonna give him my rear until he kind of maybe gives up on chasing me around here, because I do currently have two cruisers that are actually coming in here to the south. I'm hoping that they're going to give me a little bit of help, and you know, they're doing a little bit of damage, but this guy's being definite. Going to be a definite problem because now he's sailing into cap. So we're getting pushed. They're in our cap. The two battleships that wandered off to the south, where there was nobody at, they are finally coming back to help us with this push. Dresden's now involved. I'm trying desperately to get out of range at least one of these cruisers. You know, slowly but surely, I will eventually get out of the range of Caledon. But St. Louis is trying to be, he's being difficult, very difficult. He's firing from one side to the other. So now he is currently, once again, trying to AP me to death. But at the same time, he's actually firing off the other side at the two battleships, which here he's giving them his side. And you'll notice here not too long that it's not going to work out very well for him. Starting to get in some nice shells in on here on the St. Louis. Trying to finish him off before I get bum rushed by the rest of these cruisers. Now he's put the hold on. The two battleships are actually pummeling the crap out of him. So finish him off. That gives us the Caledon here. Once again, I am essentially going broadside because of the fact that he's only got one gun in play, and they at this point are kind of actually simply ignoring me. The other cruiser is. So with some battleship help here, we start pummeling this Caledon here slowly but surely. I do get a Citadel hit. You know, I talked about earlier in the garage or in the port with how weak the armor is on these ships. It really doesn't take much, and he should have been dead there. I don't know what is up with my aim tonight. I missed a lot of that stuff. Finally get the kill, puts me up almost to 50,000 damage, and now I'm going to start dealing with these two guys here. We just lost another battleship, leaving me and the South Carolina by ourselves, and the Umikaze is still AFK. That South Carolina finally gets the Dresden. That still leaves us one battleship, one cruiser against four battleships, two cruisers, and I don't have the health to actually do anything. He's still almost full health, which is sad to think that at this point in the game we still have mostly full health battleships, as well as the enemy team. They have still have a fair amount of health left. So this South Carolina is not paying attention. And that's why, once again, turning broadside, bring all my guns into play, and try to give our South Carolina, as much support as possible. I'm trying to get some fires lit here. Try to get the burn on him so he can finish him off. South Carolina does finish him off, but now I have a St. Louis that's inbound, and he actually hits me pretty nicely. So we have Solaris here coming in. He's got half his health almost. The other St. Louis, he's almost full health, and this St. Louis over here is full health. So yeah, it's not going to be a it's not going to be a carry game, fellas. This is just way too much HP to have to burn through with just the two of us. Considering that he is getting, at this point, my last battleship is getting just punished. So that battleship turns away from me. He's actually focused in on the last surviving South Carolina, who's holding up pretty well. He's got his bow to him, and he is surviving. They are simply trying to just punish him right now with all these ships that are currently in range. So once again, at this point, I'm just looking for damage. It's been a disappointing game. I loaded AP because just out of the wild fact that maybe, just maybe, he's going to give me his broadside, and maybe, just maybe, I can pull off a nice, get 5-6 citadels. That would be awesome, right? But he doesn't, so I am once again just back to spamming some HE at him, maybe getting a fire and doing a little bit more damage. So he finally does move back to broadside, but I'm at 274 hit points. But I am at 56,000 damage, which I didn't think was too bad for a tier 3 cruiser. So yeah, one of those games. If you're gonna buy, if you're looking for a premium starter cruiser, or if you like to play at this level, definitely pick it up. OLEG is pretty fun to play. So thanks for watching, guys.